I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Megan Franke, who will speak on supporting the mathematical brilliance of young people. Megan Franke is a professor of education at UCLA who is acclaimed for her work on students' mathematical thinking. She is a co-author of Choral Counting and Counting Collections and Young Children's Mathematics, Cognitively Guided Instruction in Early Childhood Education. Today, Megan will be sharing research findings and exploring how attending to these findings in our interactions with children would open opportunities, particularly for children most marginalized in school. Please welcome Dr. Megan Franke.
Everyone, thank you, Carolyn. Really appreciate the introduction and the opportunity to be with folks this morning. It was really fun to get to look at the chat and see where all of you are from and how we are covering the state of California, and folks from across the country are joining us today. I am coming to you from Los Angeles County, particularly in Santa Monica. And I want to acknowledge the Gabrielino and Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of the Los Angeles Basin. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to work for the indigenous peoples in this place. I also want to acknowledge this morning that any talk that I give or that any of us give is clearly not just our own, and that the work that I want to share today is a result of long collaborations, both with my research partners as well as with teachers and educators, both in Los Angeles and across the country. And so I really, much of what I want to share today is what I've learned along with them in this work. I have two goals for this morning. My first goal is to give us all a chance after the just really challenging year that we've all completed, both challenging in terms of COVID and remote teaching and the trauma and health challenges that have faced so many of us, as well as the racial unrest and the anti-Blackness that has pervaded the work that our lives and the work that we've been doing. I want to give us all a chance to step back from that for just a moment this morning and to get to enjoy and appreciate the brilliance of young people. Anytime that I'm overwhelmed or frustrated and I get to be with a young person or even watch a young person on video, I'm reminded of how awesome my job is, that I get a chance to learn with and from these young people, and get to constantly be amazed by who they are and what they have to offer all of us. My second goal for today is to think a little bit with you about the ways in which we can support this brilliance to emerge in educational settings of all kinds, and the ways in which we can create spaces that enable all young people, even if they're folks who don't think like we do, who represent things differently, who share their ideas in different kinds of ways, who bring different rich resources to the table, that we can support and offer opportunities for their brilliance to shine in our educational settings. So in order to accomplish that today, I want to share young people's ideas with you. So we're going to start today by engaging in watching some videos of young people, and we're going to think about two things. We're going to think about what's brilliant about what they've shared with us today, and what supported them in that moment to share their brilliance with us. And then we're going to dig into some of what we've been learning from our research about what supports young people to share their brilliance with us. I am planning today to use the chat. So I'm hoping very much that you all will participate with me. And I know there's lots of you, so there's lots and lots of opportunity for learning from each other in the chat as we go along today. So I'm going to dive right in to the first video and introduce you to Ananata. And she is talking to Natalie, her teacher, in her preschool classroom. And all of our jobs right now are to get to listen and watch her and to see what is it that she's doing that you think is brilliant. And what is it that Natalie's doing to support her to share her brilliance in this moment?
Maranatha, if we wanted to make two groups and you were going to share your collection with me and we were both going to have the same amount, could you do that? Okay. Can you share with me so we both have the same? Okay. So how many did you give me?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, so I have 6. How many do you have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Are the groups the same? Do we have the same amount? How many do I have?
6.
And how many do you have?
7.
7. So are the groups the same?
No.
No. Could we make the groups the same? How do we make the groups the same?
You just have to count them.
Yes, okay.
1,
Mm-hmm.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay. And then?
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Okay, so all together it's 13. So if you put them back together, can we make two groups that are the same? Or are we gonna have remainders?
Remainder.
Wow, how awesome was that? So I want to ask you all if you will just take a second and type into the chat, what is it that is brilliant about what Ananata is sharing with us this morning? What do you notice that's brilliant? Thanks, Florence. I see lots of beginning responses here. So brilliance in her estimation, in her one-to-one correspondence, in her ability to communicate, in her vocabulary, the way that she talks about it. Evelyn says she could tell it wasn't even, right? So what I loved about this video is right away, she knew to separate that into two piles, right? She takes her hands and just separates it for us and says, I know that I need to share this and I can do it this way. It's also the case that, and somebody said this in the chat, right? That she knows, you can see she knows right away that they're not the same, but she's not really sure what to do about it. And is more than willing to engage with Natalie in thinking about this issue, right? Some of you have started to chat already about what it is that you think is supporting her in this moment to share her brilliance. What do you think is supporting her to share her brilliance? I hope you all are reading through these chats because they're awesome. You all have a lot to offer here. I hope that you all are reading the details of what people noticed about her thinking as they talked about her brilliance, because we're going to cycle back to that in a little while. I think that for me, what's really striking about what supports her is that Natalie is carefully listening to what she says. She's building on and asking her questions about what she did do. She's not trying to fix it, but to hear and to use her approach here. She also posed her a very challenging task, you all. right? Somebody noticed that these are the top of applesauce containers. You can't really break them apart to share them. A lot of us would want to make this easier by saying, well, let's just take one of those away, so she could have easily 2 groups. But what brings out her brilliance in some ways is the fact that it isn't easily shareable. And often with young people, we hesitate about giving them really challenging problems because we worry about what that's going to mean for them. And I just so appreciate that she was able to engage in that today, and that gave us this opportunity to hear her brilliance. You all are using really nice words in the chat, like scaffolding, right? She's asking questions that are both supportive, but that are enabling her to share her ideas with us. And open-ended questions, right? She's asking open-ended questions that enable her to share her ideas some more. I keep looking at the chat and seeing new things, you all, so I hope you all are reading that. I want to go to another example. We're going to watch about 4 examples right now, and in each time we're going to answer the same 2 questions. So, sorry, you all. Let's listen to Jaden.
How many bears do we have, Jaden? How many bears?
18.
Can you count them one more time nice and loud so I can hear the numbers?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
So how many bears do you have?
18.
So I have a question for you. You have how many bears?
18.
So if you wanted to have 20 bears, how many more bears would I need?
Two.
So how many more bears would I need to give you?
2.
How'd you figure that out? What'd you do?
Because I count all of these, and so I count 18. So I count more, and then I count 2. So that's 2, and then I count another one. So that's 20. So it's 2 more.
So what were the numbers that you said after you said 18? When you were thinking about the numbers?
And then it comes 20.
Nice job, Jaden. Awesome.
All right, you all. Jaden is a. I know you all are going to ask me. Jaden's a preschooler. He's 4, and so what did you notice about what was brilliant? What brilliance that Jaden shared with us today? So some people aren't able to see the chat comments. Andrew, can you help with that by any chance? Maybe not. Somebody. All right, so folks are noticing how he was able to explain his reasoning, right? A really big part of mathematical brilliance is being able to explain in such detail his ideas, right? That he's able to use his counters to support him here. He adds on, right? So folks are talking about adding on. He's able to say, I have 18, how many more do I need to get 20? And he uses his 18 to help him get there, right? Because he recounts them all and then says 19, 20. And even when Nick comes back to him later and asks him about that, he again recounts his 18. And so part, as you all are noting already, is that he's able to use his tools to help support him, and that Nick doesn't intervene and keep him from using those tools or ask him to line up his bears so he can count more carefully, right? He lets Jaden do the Jaden thing here. He does have a beautiful strategy to solve this problem. Somebody says he perseveres, right? I love this about this. And he doesn't seem unhappy about persevering. He's just working through what Nick asked him to do, right? And I love the fact that people are noting in the chat that his brilliance, right? Part of his brilliance is his ability to count and the ways in which he counts. And he may not do it in the way that we often teach young people, which is to line them all up really carefully, but he knows exactly what he's doing and he knows exactly how to do it. He solved a problem that we would write the number sentence as 18 plus box equals 20, right? Both with large numbers, but also he has, you have to really be thinking about, as people said, adding on or thinking about what's changing in there for him. So any thoughts about what's supporting him beyond his tools to share his brilliance with us today? Anybody have thoughts that they want to add to the chat about what's allowing him to share his brilliance? Sorry, well, I'm just being patient while I read through the chat here. Right, partly, yeah, I'm reading through the chat, and partly I so appreciate the point that Sylvia is making about, I love when teachers ask and allow students to share their strategy and explain their reasoning, right? And so asking is one part of that, and not intervening or interrupting when you do that is probably the harder part of that. I think that it's also the case that we often don't think about the fact that when young people have counted something, asking them a problem that comes out of that count where they already understand, somebody talked about scaffolding earlier, right? He already understands there are 18 bears there. Nick even says to him before he poses the problem, again, wait, how many bears do you have, right? To support him in his, yeah, I got 18. What's it gonna mean now for me to figure out how many more I need to get to 20, right? So Nick provides supports in helping him keep track of what he's got there, but he's also, right, telling him a story about the bears and enabling him to use what he just did to help him think about how to solve that problem. It's also the case that, right, that that Nick let him think about and count in whatever way made sense for him, and Nick posed him a pretty challenging problem right there, right? So not a problem often, again, that we would share with young people. So let's watch another example. So now we get to meet Hazel, and Hazel is going to solve a problem that we often have posed to young people because it's an assessment problem that we use. Megan had 3 packages of cupcake. There were 4 cupcakes in each package. She ate 5 cupcakes. How many cupcakes are left? So let's see what Hazel has to share with us today.
It's about cupcakes. Yum. Okay, so Megan had 3 packages of cupcakes. There were 4 cupcakes in each package. She ate 5 cupcakes.
5. Wow, she would get a tummy ache.
She might get a tummy ache. How many cupcakes are left?
She had how many?
Here, I can read it again.
I mean, how many packages?
So Megan had 3 packages of cupcakes. There are 4 cupcakes in each package. She ate 5 cupcakes. How many cupcakes are left?
She started with how many packages?
So Megan had 3 packages of cupcakes. There were 4 cupcakes in each package.
How many packages? 3?
Megan had 3 packages of cupcakes. There were 4 cupcakes in each package. She ate 5 cupcakes. How many cupcakes are left?
I'm just going to different things. Okay, so she had 5 for them. There, and she has that was 9.
Awesome. Tell me about what you did.
I had all the boxes filled, and then there's 4 in each box, and then here's one box crossed out.
Why does that one get crossed out?
Because there was 4 in it, and she eats 5, so there's just one bit crossed off. That's 1 cupcake. She has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
So count this for me one more time, the ones that she has left.
I'll just do it again. I actually got a little confused. So here's the 3 packages. She eats all of these. And then she eats 1 out of these. So she has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 left.
She has 7 left. Got it. Thank you.
Wow, you all. So let's talk about Hazel's brilliance. If you're still having trouble seeing the chat, Angela texted me that you might need to toggle a feature in your chat window to make the most recent comments show up on the top. Otherwise, they might be hidden in the bottom. So I just want to help folks who aren't getting to read the chat because the chat's really awesome. But I want you to spend a minute just kind of what did you notice about what was brilliant about what Hazel shared with us today? All right. So, one of the things that we often focus on here in these examples is the mistakes that young people make. And I think that what we want to be able to recognize in Hazel's brilliance is the fact that Hazel is so wonderfully working through her idea in a way to make sure that she has the idea that she wants to share with you in the way that she wants to share it. She knows right away to make 3 boxes for her packages. She knows right away that she wants to put 4 cupcakes in each package. And what she's playing with is how to represent that idea, right? And what are the different ways that she can represent that idea. She also tells you right at the beginning that she understands the story because she says, oh my, she's going to have a tummy ache, right? really important that young people understand the context, and that's part of her brilliance here, right? Is she knows that the story, that she can understand this story, and that she can use her understanding of the story to help her figure out this problem. It's also the case that she knows right away to cross off one package of cupcakes, you all. She knows I can get rid of a package because there's 4 and I have to eat 5. So many wonderful examples of her brilliance and her representation of that brilliance here, right? She's showing us that she can figure out how to represent her idea in some very different ways on paper, and shows you different forms of that representation as she moves along to make sure she carefully tells you how many cupcakes are left. So again, the question becomes, how do we think about what enabled Hazel, right, to share her brilliance with us? Because we could have easily redirected her back to her first representation and said, wait, you had it right here. Let's just talk about this one, right? We could easily have given her some counters and said, hey, why don't you use these? And instead, what we did here, what Angela did here, right, was allow Hazel to be Hazel and figure this out in a way that made sense to her without intervening, and supported her by helping her understand the problem, right, by helping her with how many cupcake packages she had and how many cupcakes were in each package. And essentially supported Hazel, right, to work through all of the details of her mathematical idea in ways that we get to see some really subtle brilliance, right? We get to see she can represent the 4 cupcakes as 4 individual things, and she can represent those 4 cupcakes with the numeral 4 as well. I saw in the chat some comments about how that this is not typical for preschool. And I just want to make sure these young people are sharing ideas that we see regularly in preschools across Los Angeles and in other parts of the state of California and outside of California. And partly what happens is we need to find ways that allow these young people to share what they know, and so that we get to see that all of these young people coming to our class have such brilliance to share with us. So I have one more example that's probably going to take that idea of brilliant young people and extend it even farther. And you all aren't going to believe probably that Fernie's a preschooler, but let's watch Fernie. Oops, sorry, you all. He is a preschooler. He is dressed up for us today because he was asked if we could interview him, and he came all ready for us today. And so I'm going to share this video of Fernie.
Okay, ready for the next one? Okay. So Tad had 15 guppies. Do you know what guppies are? They're really little fish, like baby fish.
Oh, I have those.
You have those? Okay, so here we go. So Tad had 15 guppies. He put 3 guppies in each jar. How many jars have guppies in? Five. Wow, how'd you figure that out?
I counted by 3s.
You counted by 3s? Can I hear you do the counting by 3s out loud?
3, 6, 9, 12, 15.
Wow. So how many jars did Tad put guppies in?
5.
Okay, right. Fernie gets to challenge all of us about what's possible for young people. So what did you notice about what Fernie was doing that was brilliant, you all? Take a minute. What do you notice about what is brilliant? right? He's just does this with such ease, right? He's confident. I love the way in which you all are capturing such a broad range of what makes a young person brilliant, right? Part of it is what they know and can tell you mathematically. Part of it is how they know and how they're able to express themselves. Part of it is the who they are and how confident they are in their thinking about it. But you know, here Fernie is, and you can hear Angela's surprise, right? But whoa, how'd you get that so fast, right? And that Fernie is able to count by threes to figure out how many guppies, right? How many jars, and that he can do that for Angela, right? He can express himself by showing her, right? So the question is, what enabled him to share his brilliance in this particular moment? Because we don't expect often young people to be able to count by, right? To be able to count by threes. If you're going to put 3 guppies in each jar, how many jars, right? We don't expect young people to do that. And we also don't often give young people the time and space to think before we worry that they don't know what to do, so we give them counters, right? And part of what enabled Fernie here is that Angela let him sit and think about it without quite seeing what he was doing, right? And then she supported him by saying, hey, what'd you do? She supported him by asking, you counted by threes. Can you do that for me? Can I hear you do that? Right? Because there's lots of ways he could have said when he counted by threes, he could be talking 1, 2, 3. Like I can use my fingers and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? So she got to find out more about his brilliance by probing him a little bit and supporting him to tell her more about his mathematical ideas. Love all of the notions in the chat. And I'm going to get to some of these comments, I hope, as we go through, as we think about both kind of why these young people are able to share their brilliance. Part of what we've been focusing on is in the moment, but they share these same kinds of brilliant things in their class. It's just easier to show you a video of individual young people. But one of the things that we've been learning a lot about as we've listened to the brilliance of young people and we study what goes on in classrooms is that we found a really strong relationship between young people getting to work through their ideas, like we saw Fernie do, and we saw all Hazel and Jaden and Anata, right? They all got to work through their entire mathematical idea. They got to explain it and show it. And it turns out when young people have a chance to explain their idea all the way through, they do better, right? Because they're working on their mathematical ideas as they share them, as they explain them. And it isn't that never getting to explain your idea means you don't learn anything. It just means there's benefit to being able to explain your idea to others. Well, what have we learned about explaining? Can we step back from watching these videos and think about what's creating opportunities for their understandings to emerge? Right? And one of probably our most consistent findings in all of our research is that details matter, right? We got to hear the details of Fernie's count. We got to hear and watch, right, Hazel's details of her representation. In all of these cases, right, the interviewer, the teacher, right, ask them about those details. How did you count those threes? Right? Those details are what support young people to not only learn, but to share their brilliance in really important ways. And so knowing about young people's mathematical thinking can help us know what to look and listen for, right? We have to think about, well, what would we expect Fernie to say, so that we know what we might be listening for. It's also the case that we need to look beyond the formal mathematics, right? Yes, we care about math vocabulary. We care about young people knowing their number facts. But it's also true that young people come to school with very sophisticated mathematical knowledge, using informal language and representations and gestures, and particularly for our youngest young people, these things really matter for their ability to share with you what it is they know and understand. We talked about right, part of what enabled us to see what young people could do here, right, was that the task matters. What you pose matters to what we're able to see. And often we pose, right, we ask young people to count to 8 when we could ask them to count to 32 and still get to see lots and lots of things that they know. Asking young people to go beyond what we think they can do provides opportunities for them to surprise us. It's also true that paying attention to the pieces of knowledge that they have, right? Ananata did not correctly solve that problem, but she did something brilliant. She knew to separate that pile into 2. She knew to count them to see if they were the same. And so attending to these partial things that students know really help us notice their brilliance, because they're mathematically very, very important. So I'm not trying to pretend that young people know things they don't, right? Ananata knows things that are hugely important mathematically that we want to be paying attention to and recognizing for their brilliance. It's not about you know it or you don't know it. It's not about what you did wrong. It's about what pieces of wonderful, beautiful understanding are you able to share with us in this moment in whatever ways make sense to you. But you all know and have raised in the chat that learning isn't about individual interviews, right? It's not about sitting down one-on-one always with students. It's a collective endeavor. And in that, right, young people are engaging with each other and engaging with each other's ideas. And here we're learning some of the very same things that we learned when we listened to individual young people in terms of how important it is for them to share their ideas. And often when they engage with each other, we get to see new brilliant things that they know and can do. I'm going to skip this and move right to thinking a little bit about thinking a little bit about what the data tells us about the relationship between young people engaging with each other's ideas and achievement. And so what I mean here is that we look to see when young people during math class had a chance to engage with somebody else's mathematical idea or somebody engaged with their mathematical idea. And what becomes very, very important here is that often in math class, we do ask young people to do this, but we ask them to do it by saying, thumbs up if you agree, right? Or Megan, which idea was most like yours? Those are really important questions to ask, right? But in those cases, it's more of a general reference to somebody's idea, right? And it's helpful, right? And it's also an entree into more and deeper engagement with each other's ideas. But it's also the case that when young people can engage with each other's ideas in a little more detailed way, like, I heard that Fernie counted by 3s. I heard him say 3, 6, right? That if you can get to the details of that student's ideas, that it helps you a little bit. You learn more, right? There's more opportunities for learning. And if you can engage with somebody else's idea, or they can engage with your ideas, where you not only reference in detail somebody else's ideas, but you get to contribute a new idea, right? So if you think about Jaden, right? I could look at Jaden, who counted out his 18 bears, and Nick said, how many more to 20, and say, wow, Jaden, I saw that you counted all of those bears. And then you went 19, 20, right? And showed your fingers that you can hold that 18 in your head and say 19, 20. You're not only noting the details of his ideas, but you're extending his ideas in some interesting ways. When you're able to engage with each other in those kinds of detailed ways, both of you learn, it turns out. right? And this is an important finding for us because often we think of the people who benefit from engaging with each other's ideas is the student that we perceive needs support benefits more. And it turns out in our data that that's not true, that the student who does the explaining and the student who does the engaging with each other's idea both benefit from these kinds of engagements. And we might think that this is just not possible with really young children, but that's not the case, you all. That it turns out that that really young children also can engage with the details of each other's ideas. And I'm going to try really quickly to see if you can. Yeah, I'm going to skip. I'm worried you can't hear it very well. So. What does it look like? So sorry about the abbreviation. EOI is engaging with others' ideas. What does it sound and look like? And I just want to highlight that when young people are engaging with each other's mathematical ideas, that what they're able to do is both mathematically important, but it's also important because they're learning to learn together, right? They're learning to hear each other. They're developing social and emotional skills as they try and navigate and negotiate each other's ideas. But it's also true that they have to figure out how to hear the details of somebody else's idea, right? And so again, details matter, right? So one of the big kind of takeaways from all of this work is the more that we have opportunities in our classrooms for young people to detail their ideas, to work through their ideas, to engage with the details of each other's ideas, the more everybody learns something. And this can happen not in the whole group, you all. This can happen in turn and talk, can happen in small groups. So that many young people are getting a chance to engage with each other's ideas. It's not just about getting students to talk. It's what they're talking about, right? That matters. That's why the working through of your ideas is so important, because you're working through the substance of their math ideas. I think the thing that trips us up sometimes as teachers is that we think that engagement with each other's ideas needs to be seamless. It needs to sound pretty. They have to use formal vocabulary. It has to happen in a sequential you talk, I talk way. It turns out that doesn't, in our classrooms, it does not look like that, you all. Sometimes there's long pauses where nobody's engaging. Sometimes they're both talking at the same time and there's overlapping talk. Often they are gesturing. Sometimes they get frustrated with each other. But when you follow their conversations all the way through, that you see that as they've worked through this, they've done some really important mathematical work. So I want to remind us that you don't explain your idea all the way through beautifully necessarily when you're engaging with somebody, and we shouldn't expect young people to. And that partnering students is about students, who they are and their feelings, and about engaging with each other's, right? So young people would tell us that if things didn't go well with one of their friends when they were out on the yard that day, engaging with them in mathematics was also hard, right? And so people often ask us, well, how do I pair young people up? And there is no right way, you all. But I will say that figuring out how to work with your partner is a big part of that. One of the things that also comes up a lot is that we expect young people's participation in classrooms to all look the same, right? I'm showing you participation of 6 young people, all in the same classroom, over the same days, right? And the bars are kind of, the blue bars are how much explaining they did, and the green bars are how much engaging with each other's ideas they did, and the bottom of each one are all the different parts of the class. And I don't want to dig into the details of this, but I want you to be able to look at this and to see how different Nico's participation is from Gerardo's participation, right? Or Adam's is from Jessica's. And all of these young people are participating in explaining and engaging with each other's ideas across the lesson, but they're not doing it in the same ways in the same time. And why this matters, and they're all of these young people have the same achievement score. So it's not that young people who are really successful in class all participate in the same way. It's that they all are participating in ways that make sense to them. They're finding spaces, the teachers are creating spaces for them to be them and to find where it makes sense for them to either explain or engage with each other's ideas. You do not have to be an explainer in every setting. You don't have to be somebody who evenly explains and engages with somebody else's idea to be successful in a math classroom. So we need to carefully think about what we're expecting from our young people and how we're trying to get young people to all participate in the same ways, rather than opening up spaces for young people to participate in ways that make sense to them. And this emerges in some new data that we are just getting ready to write about. And I think Nick might be on the call now. Nick Johnson is taking the lead on this work, but we've been looking at when young people engage in conversations together in math class, in sharing their ideas with each other. And one of the things that Nick has been learning is about the relationship between explaining and engaging with each other's ideas. And typically in a math class, we let students explain all the way through their idea to the public group, and then we say to them, hey, you all, let's now engage with Megan's idea. Anybody have a question for Megan? What do you notice about Megan's idea, right? And it turns out in classrooms where the young people, in situations where young people are both explaining and engaging with each other's ideas and they're sharing out, often the initial share out is a partial idea. It's the student giving a piece of their idea, and that piece of the idea is then engaged with the rest of the group, and that enables lots of students to participate in the conversation. And so what this data is raising for us is this balance between explaining and asking kids to engage with each other's ideas. We need to think about that in our classrooms. We need to think about how we're inviting young people to participate with each other's ideas and when we're inviting that to happen, and not waiting until somebody explains their idea and then having a whole sequence of explaining of ideas before young people get to engage with those ideas. So to bring this to a close and give you a chance to ask some questions, I just want to remind folks that there are some very significant notions here about whose voices get heard in math classrooms, whether it's through explaining or engaging with each other's ideas, whose voices are valued, whose resources, whose ways of doing things are valued. And one of the reasons that I wanted to start with the Brilliance is to remind us that every one of our young people has brilliance, and we need to think about how we're creating opportunities for that brilliance to emerge in classrooms where often it's speed and accuracy that drives who's seen as brilliant, right? And one of the things that Amy Parks has helped us think about is that when she studied Black students, it was the case that when questions were just really broad and general, the students hesitated. They didn't quite know what to say. But when questions were more specific and the teacher positioned them as being, you got this, right? You're on it, that they had a much easier time explaining and justifying, just like you saw in those early videos, that the questions are about what specific, but they're also about what the student said, right? And so I think it's really, sorry, you all just realized I was unplugged. It's really important to think about what we're asking young people and how we're positioning them. It also is the case that that helping young people do this doesn't happen because we set a whole bunch of norms and say, all right, you all remember, you need to talk to your partner today, right? It happens because you, as an educator in the moment, are supporting young people to say, oh, Megan, did you hear what Angela just said, right? Or what's on this paper right here? Megan, can you explain this to Angela? Right? Those moves that you make in the moment are incredibly important for supporting young people to figure out what does it mean to engage with each other's ideas. And again, it's not going to look the same for everyone. It's also the case that if you want students to engage with each other's ideas, you need to help them see that they know how to do it. You need to support them to say, right, I see that you've got that going here. Share some more with us. And as Dan Beatty helps us think about, it's all about building relationships. And this was in the chat already, right? You all noted this at the very beginning as you talked about Natalie and Ananata, right? That her ability to share her brilliance is because of the relationship that the teachers and the students have together. So we can't forget through all of this mathematical work, what's important is that we're building these relationships with young people and supporting them to see themselves as brilliant. I just want to end with this really important quote from Professor Amani Gafni. And she helps us think about how we as teachers speak, listen, see, and interact with young people matters. They shape the environment, shape the environment and interaction that in turn shapes students' sense of themselves and their competence. Teachers can reproduce themselves and their competence. Teachers can reproduce marginalization or disrupt it. As such, teachers, we play an essential role in rehumanizing school experiences of Latinx, Black, and Indigenous students. So as we think about who our students are and how they participate, we can help create an environment that helps students see themselves as competent and help them see themselves as math students who can share their brilliance with us. So I want to thank you all for hanging in there with me, and I think we have a little bit of time for questions at this moment. Not sure how that's supposed to work, though. I can't see the questions at the moment. Hold on. So maybe that's not going to work. My chat is frozen. Angela, can you see questions in the chat that you could text to me by any chance? Oh, maybe this will help. I'm refreshing you all, be patient. This might work for me. Awesome. Sorry, you all. Oh, all right. So there are some questions about curriculum, right? And so what's interesting about the work that we do is that we are trying to help teachers use whatever resources that they have available to them. And what we're trying to help teachers do is to understand better the details of children's mathematical thinking and how those ideas develop. What I would suggest is that as you look at the curriculum that you're choosing or what curriculum are going to be supportive, that you also think about how those curriculums are supporting teacher learning about the details of children's ideas in ways that help them become generative in what they're doing. It's also, I also see that folks are asking for access to the videos. So on the slide you should be seeing now, there's the Dream TE website. We have put together a website for teacher educators that brings together lots of resources for preschool, for people learning to teach preschool. On that website are a number of the videos that I shared with you today and other kinds of videos. So the ones that are publicly available, you can find there. The videos are also in our books that we've produced. Young Children's Mathematics would be, for you all, probably the one that you want to go to. There's a question about what I said about using norms. And what I want to say about that is that often we depend on norm setting in our class to help young people figure out how to participate. I'm a big believer in norm setting, you all. right? In helping young people be explicit about who are we together in this space and how are we going to participate together. But you all also know that we can say, hey, you all, in this class, it's really important that we listen to each other, right? That we respect each other. What's important about that, though, is we don't all think about those things the same. We don't think about what it means to listen to each other, right? At some dinner tables, listening to each other means you interrupt. At some dinner tables, listening to each other means you wait till the person's already finished. We have really different notions of what it means to respect each other or to wait for each other. And partly that means that norms are a starting point for developing practice, and that we together have to figure out, what does this look like in our classroom? What are we hoping? What are the actual practices that we're engaged in that meet those sets of norms? And I think what we've done is we've encouraged teachers to develop norms, which I'm very excited about, but we haven't helped teachers think about how do you support the development of those norms in practice with young people. And that takes supporting students in the moment, right? We don't get better at working with each other in the playground or playing nicely together on the playground because I say to you all, hey, go play nicely on the playground. We do it because in that moment, on the playground, I can say, hey, Megan, I really like how you let Joshua take a turn, right? Thanks, Angela, so much. She's texting me the questions that you all are asking. So there's a question about, would intermixing learning levels in groups be beneficial or detrimental? Really great questions you all are asking. And so what I would hope to communicate to you all is that if you listen to the details of children's mathematical ideas and you see their brilliance, the levels, right, become much more mixed up, right? That young people all have something to offer each other, and that somebody might be, you all did such a nice job of details, right? Somebody might be really good at one-to-one correspondence, right? In counting 15 things, and somebody else might be really good at organizing. Both of those young people are good counters in different kinds of ways. And so what we want to be doing is finding multiple ways for young people to support each other's mathematical ideas. And so I want to encourage you to think about all the different ways in which you can mix young people up in their partnerships, and create space for them to learn with each other and from each other in productive kinds of ways. And I want to push back on kind of these notions that there are distinct levels, right? Because I think that sometimes young people who are really good at getting the answer right may not be very good at explaining, may not have a strategy that's taking advantage of what they might take advantage of around grouping, for instance. And so I think I want to push back a little bit on this notion of levels and really think more broadly about all the nuanced ideas that young people have. And so I guess the bottom line there is mix them up as much as possible so they get a chance to learn from each other's. So there's also a note in here about, so partial understandings can allow the rest of the class to engage in a student's idea, especially if the initial understandings are detailed in. And so I guess what I'm trying to help us see here is that our kind of traditional notions of how math classes should work can be blown up a little bit. And that when young people get a chance to put a little bit of their idea on the table, right? So let's say that that we were talking about Jaden and he was going to share his idea with the rest of the group. And it may be that what they get to see him do is count out the 18 and hear and say, and pause at the, well, how do you think he got 2 more, right? How did he figure out what 20 would be, right? That then other people get to do a turn and talk to each other about what they think Jaden might do there, make a prediction about Jaden. You might ask the young people, well, what did you notice about Jaden's count right there, right? So partially and it is the details, right? It's digging into those details in a way that enables all of the young people to participate together and see themselves in each other's mathematical ideas. And so the last thing that I will say is that that the best way to learn about young people's mathematical ideas is to do what somebody in the chat said earlier, which is create space to listen to your young people. Because the more you listen to them, the more you learn about young people's ideas. There are lots of resources out there that can help support teachers to learn about young people's ideas. Sometimes it might be your curricula. We have some particular ones that we share, whether it be the book that's on the screen about children's mathematics or young children's mathematics or extending. All of those books are about detailing young people's ideas and what we know about that. The same is true. There's some of that work also on the Dream TE website. There's lots of people out in the world, Tracy Zegger and others, who do a lot of this work that you can learn from. I think I want to make sure that what I'm articulating here is that support for it is really helpful, but the beauty of it comes in listening to your own young people, because they're going to challenge some of these things we've learned, right? What we learned when we did this research, we continue to learn that young people can do more and more brilliant things every day. These young people blow us away with their brilliance. So I want to let you all into let them challenge you about their brilliance by creating tasks that allow them to do that, and by creating spaces where they can share what they know without us getting in their way, you all. So I think it's 9:25 and we're at the end of our time together. So I appreciate you all sticking with me through our morning together, and I wish that we were in person so I could get a chance to learn more from you all, because the comments in the chats were just amazing and fabulous. So thank you all so much.